Today we're gathering around the campfire with Dawn, a QHS member whose life is as exciting and grounding as a hike through the mountains. But what trails did she tread to reach these heights? Let's trek into the wilderness and discover the adventures that led Dawn to where she is today.
Hello, my name's Dawn, and I've been part of QHS since November of 2023. Ancestors, background. My folks were, honestly, they were first generation raised in the United States. Always thought I was full-blooded German, and I'm not, but that's okay. Lots to learn when it comes to cultures that you're not aware of. I grew up, and I'll put it this way, my family loved each other the best they knew how to do. And I think being loving is something you learn. It's not always something that's available to everybody until they understand what it is and how it is to love and not just provide for somebody. So my dad was a hard worker. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I remember my early years, according to my mom, I was writing sentences by the time I was 2 years old. But then I had a little brother, and I didn't get all my mom's attention anymore. And honestly, from there, and then with my sister, I'm sure that growing up with me was very challenging, both for my parents and my siblings, because I think I took on a lot of resentment and anger and jealousy that I had siblings, and I was not a nice person. I was very selfish growing up. And I could tell funny stories because I always wished that if I never had a brother and sister, I could have all these physical possessions that I felt like I was being deprived of when I was growing up. So that tells you about my background a little bit. Did I feel loved? My father was the type of man who could use a story two different ways. He used to tell my brother, if you work hard all your life, you can make your bed, meaning retirement, and you could live well after that. I remember being 14 years old, and he would use it as, you made your bed, you have to live in it. Like I couldn't change my life. So I moved out at 17 after I graduated high school out of the 11th grade. I actually graduated with a full ride scholarship to the University of Colorado for mechanical engineering. The funny thing was I didn't even know what mechanical engineering was. And I lost that scholarship after about a year and decided rather than building bridges or doing things like that, I wanted to be where trees grew. So I really studied a lot in botany. One of my goals was to go to the Amazon forest, find cures for different diseases. And I was sitting in a genetics class, and I'm not the kind of person that daydreams. I mean, I have ideas of what I want to accomplish, but in this particular class, because genetics is fascinating, I all of a sudden had like a lucid dream in class that showed me I had found and discovered things, and my supervisor was so excited. And then that supervisor wanted to go tell her manager, and when she walked out of that room, all of a sudden I was above in the facility, and she walked into a different part of the facility I wasn't even aware existed, and they were going to use my research to cause harm on humanity. So I changed my perception of what I wanted to do. I didn't feel it was safe to start finding cures for diseases. And so I ended up getting my degree in botany and anthropology as a minor. However, I ended up becoming a mom of three kids shortly thereafter. Well, over the few years, obviously, not all at once. So with that, I met the man I married when I was 14. And with my children, we escaped from him when I was 38. And that's really when starting to search for who I am, what I want to do. I have to give my dad credit. I have to give my ex-husband credit. I would not be the human being I am today, except for the challenges that they provided in my life. So forgiveness-wise, not a problem. do I love? I love my children. They wouldn't exist if I didn't have my ex-husband, who now both of them are deceased. So that's kind of what I've done career-wise. 30 years in the medical field, not as a professional, but health unit coordinator or doing pre-authorization, pre-certification. I've got really good at dealing with insurance companies, not my favorite thing to do. And now at this point in time, after getting laid off a few years ago, I actually work part-time for a lawn care business from my home. I call myself the office manager, and I do a lot of creative things, as well as quality customer service. People love me, and I don't have a supervisor, so I can talk to people and let them know they have an ear. And talk about different things. But through all of that, I've become an iridologist, and that's what I was doing this past weekend at an expo, was visiting with people. I did European iridology, which basically I take photos of their eyes. I look at the colors around the iris and some of the different key elements, and I can share with them any weaknesses they might have. It's not a diagnostic tool, and when I share information, it's not considered a prescription, but folklore, herbal things, qigong, yoga, any type of things to help them improve their lives. And with that, it has led on to one of my biggest desires is to have healing centers around the world. And with those healing centers, at first they weren't going to be what my creative mind has brought them into being now. And now everything is so frequency based. And I have found home with QHS, with Dr. Alfredo's things, and Cynthia bringing everything together, the administrative team. Because now, I used to always tell my kids before I ever heard of QHS, tell my kids, tell my grandkids, and they will tell you, Grandma's going to live to be 150 years old. It's a reality. It's a reality. Learning about telomeres and them needing to be lengthened again so that our DNA structure does. Everything's fallen together between yin and yang, Tesla's 369 frequencies, all coming together. So there's such a great hope for the future. And my hope is to bring a lot of people to the excitement of that awareness, because I think if everybody knew how beautiful this is, they would understand love, they would understand compassion, empathy, and it would bring the whole world together in a whole different way. So basically, I'm looking at here, sharing from head to toes. I have not been as daring as some people who are willing to share parts of their body that they want to see change. However, I would love to have, I have a pretty good abdomen, but to have a female six-pack, and not overdone, but just to be toned and healthy from top to bottom. And I'm struggling with, do I want to lose some of my things on my face? Because I always loved in college a woman I worked with, because when she smiled, her smile was from her heart. And she always ended up with these wrinkles that I didn't think looked bad at all. And I realized I have them too. Because when I see people and I get to share with them from the heart, it's reflected in my face. But there are other places that gets a little bit crepey under the arms and different things. I'm ready for those to go again and have that nice, tight, firm skin of somebody who's 30 to 35 years old. But that's my story. I haven't had a lot of physical injuries, which I hear people's progress with the V6 and with the touch. The touch also is so amazing. I've had a very lucky life in that respect. And to me, I just feel like it gives me energy. It keeps me going. But I can say two different things, especially with the touch, with the V6, when I very first got it. I was struggling with like carpal tunnel, and I had taken a pretty bad fall, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bone chip that had come off when I hit so hard that with the V6, it took a while, and so I didn't notice. I'm not as observant as some people are, totally feeling what's inside because I'm so busy being active, as you can tell with my hands moving. But no more carpal tunnel feelings, no more pain in my wrist or my hands. And just this week, 2 days ago, I twisted my ankle really good when I was out walking my dog. And for the morning, it didn't bother me. So I thought, yay, I'm scot-free. And then now that afternoon, it reminded me, oh, by the way, you hurt your ankle this morning. And I was barely gimping walking around the house. So I put it on ice, and then in the evening had my touch on me, and the actual V6 kind of bound onto my ankle where I had twisted it. And when I woke up the next day, to my delight and surprise, there was no pain, no sensitivity. It was as if it never happened. And that's frequency. And that's what's exciting. And that's what healing centers will have to offer, because I know I'm not the only one that wants to do that. So that's my prequel. That's my story. I love QHS. I love the people I get to meet and work with, and the friends I have developed with the program. And thank you for the time to be able to do this.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.